Okay, Tzur, it's good to see you again. For you, it's already after Tisha B'Av. For us, we are in the afternoon. After Chatzot, we've sat up, we're sitting on chairs, and we're seeking Nechama, but we're still in the heart of Tisha B'Av, and we want to thank you for joining us. It's good to see you again. Tzur was in our community earlier this year, and I want to thank you for joining us for this discussion, which I know is not easy, which is painful, which on the one hand opens old wounds and also continues to feel the pain of current wounds that have not yet closed. Before we begin, I just remind everyone that Tzur is the fraternal twin brother of Hadar Goldin, Hashem Yikom Damo. They were both officers in elite units in Gaza 6 years ago, 2014, Operation Protective Edge. And we all remember, we can never forget that during a supposed ceasefire that was brokered by the United Nations, Hadar was ambushed and killed, and his body was kidnapped by Hamas. And here we are 6 years later, and still, they have not released his body, they've not returned his body. So unjust, against international law, against any code of ethics or morality, so unbearably painful, we know, for you and your family, and for any decent, good people anywhere in the world who his murder itself is abhorrent, intolerable, but the fact that his body hasn't been returned, among the many things we sit low to the ground and we cry and we grieve about this Tisha B'Av, is your brother, and the inability for you and your family to really be able to grieve the way you deserve to do so for him. So we want to thank you, as I said, for joining us for this conversation. I know it's not easy for you, but maybe we can begin, Tzur, by telling us a little bit about your brother, about Hadar, about what it was like growing up with him, about who he was, and for the world, for us on this Tisha B'Av, to understand and appreciate what was stolen from us, what was robbed from us, what we're missing.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi Goldberg. So I'm pleased to be here in this special day, and I feel I feel very honored to be specifically in these times where the big missions of our nation, we should think about all the bigger things about Sinat Chinam, Avat Chinam, make cheshbon nefesh about our path, and I'm humbled to be here and as a part of a discussion that we're doing together in this holy day. I think it's one of maybe the holiest day for me, and I feel honored to speak about Hadar, and I do it with the great humility, even though for me it's the world. So thank you for having me. I'll just start from that. So I'm the twin brother of Hadar Goldin. I'm 29 years old now already. When Hadar was kidnapped and killed, I was 23 years old, commander in the IDF. And ever since, I've been a part of the long and hard and tiring journey of bringing him back home. And we were fortunate to have your community. I'm talking to people who don't know me yet, but we're fortunate to feel part of the family, and also lucky enough to have your support many times. And so this was a short brief about me. We were born, Hadar and I, we are the youngest of in my family. We were born in Eshchar in the Western Galilee, North Israel, in a very small place that had the goal of bringing Datiim and Chilonim, religious people and secular people together. It was specifically designed for that. It was a very small yeshuv with very happy people, with a very strong mission. It was the first yeshuv that was like that. And this was the atmosphere that we grew up with. My father is an historian. My mother is a computer scientist. She builds rockets, and he's an historian. And Hadar and I grew in an environment. We also spent 3 years in England, in Cambridge, UK, as part of my father's sabbatical. And so we grew up in an environment that gave us the mission and quest to feel as ambassadors everywhere, as Tzionim Datiim, as Datiim Leumim, with unity. There's a very big saying that you say in Bnei Akiva, that in Hebrew you say Tzionut Datit, and there's a makaf, there's a line in between Tzionut Datit, and we were taught that that's your mission. That's how you grow up. You are the makaf, the small line that is in between, and this is Datiim Leumim or Tzionut Datit, or so this was the mission. Hadar was a very bright young boy. He had a very unique talent for drawing and designing, and he wrote comics, and he wrote very impressive piece of art up until his very young age of 18. He was a known artist, and we are lucky to have a lot of yetzirot, a lot of things he created with us. He was also a brilliant advisor in the youth movement, and he was a teacher in heart and an educator in heart. And when we grew up, we went to pre-military yeshiva academy. We studied in Eli, and when we were 20 years old, we recruited the military. I was in Maglan, but Hadar was in Seyret Givati. He was a mitztayen, right already, and straight away people understood that this is a very unique kind of guy with a quest to educate, and he lived up to it a lot of times. I'll give only two brief examples. In his Siddur, Hadar wrote a lot of things. He didn't write it for people to see, but it was more. I'll bring his Siddur. I have it with me, but he wrote in his Siddur everywhere he went a lot of lines that for him alone. Okay, so one of them was a prayer before he started all the tefillah. The first was Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, that we all say, and we go into shul. But the passages are, one of them is Aderabe ten belibenu shenireh kol echad malat chaverenu velo chesronam she'akol yeh nachat ruach vegalui lefanecha. It's something he said before each and every prayer. He also is from Rabbi Elimelech Milizhansk. And he had also, יהי רצון לפניך שאזכה להיות בשמחה תמיד, ואזכור כל רגע כי בחרת בנו מכל האומות, בני בכורי ישראל, שלא אפול חלילה לעצבות וצער, שלא אפול לידי זקנה לעולם. This is what is one of the sidurs, and it's something that went on with him, and when you read it and put it in your heart, you understand that it's something very unique. The second is he wrote Oz ve'anava on his rifle strap, strength and humility. I don't know if it's the correct definition, but it's the best that we found, because he truly believed that the IDF soldier is we should go back to our roots. Every nation has its gladiators, Rambo, all the patriots and all the big warriors who set an example.
Right.
But what are we, Bnei David, the people of Israel? What example do we set? And he thought about these two combinations taken from the Siddur, from Tefillah, from Baruch Sham, from a very, very old prayer that was written. Oz ve'anava lechai olamim. It's a very, very strong passage written about angels. We can talked about the angels, of course, according to Jewish tradition, not the angels that are, the right, what we call malachim, specifically in Hebrew. And Oz ve'anava, these two opposites that cooperate and flatter each other. And this is the warrior in Israel. So Hadar did a lot of stuff. One of when we were very young in the operations, Hadar was an innovator. I was lucky enough to be with him every step he went, but he thought of all sorts of ideas to help people that are in great danger or need help. One of them was the Operation Oferet Yetzukah. It was 2009. I don't know if you remember the operation in Gaza, where he decided that there were thousands of rockets. I know this is repetitive. Tzuk Eitan, Amud Anan, Oferet Yetzukah, but this was 2009, 11 years ago. And we opened a business that was supposed to bring we were in Kfar Saba, Ra'anana, the big cities in Israel. and we decided to take all the bakeries and all the supermarkets who had to close for just over a month. And we took there all the schora, I don't know what's the term in English, but all the
merchandise. They're all
the merchandise to Jerusalem. This is a boy, a 17-year-old boy, who thought about this. So you could only imagine what we feel today when we look at the quest to bring him back home, and we do it properly and do it in a way that saves lives in the future. And also the feeling that we stay with, that is all about shared faith, about achdut, unity. And Rabbi, I don't want to interfere. I want to follow your questions.
No problem.
But there's also a very amazing context about Tisha B'Av that I can also talk about when you will feel is right.
Sure. I wanted to just follow. First of all, thank you for sharing all of that, because what you describe really is the most appropriate for Tisha B'Av. The notion of your upbringing in a place that's trying to bridge the Dati and Chiloni of Achdut. That's why we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, and that's what it's going to take to bring it back, is the ability to heal and to be united and to be one. It's what your family has stood for. It's what Hadar stood for, and how he is remembered. And as you described, I mean, I'm moved, and I know that everybody listening and watching is moved by what is inscribed in his Siddur, or what was written on his gun. You know, the image of a Jewish warrior, which he was in this elite unit, and a leader in that unit. And coming out of Eli, both of you, the image of the warrior is of someone who's a brute, who's brutal, right? But there's a soul and an artist and a sweetness and a poet that was inside him, which it just compounds the tragedy that the loss is so devastating, because how much did he have yet to write and to do? How much was yet to be said from his Siddur? And it's so tragic and it's so unjust. And as I said, it's among the many things that we mourn and grieve. You mentioned your father's a historian, and I know he wrote a book about Jewish martyrdom, about Jews who gave their lives. And when he did his research and wrote that book, I'm sure he never dreamt that it would be his own child, it would be his own family. So talk to us about this effort to bring Hadar home. I know that you and your family have advocated for some change in the policy towards Gaza, towards its leadership, towards the international community, in terms of what it would take, or how we bring someone home and make sure that we never leave somebody ever alive or even after life. So tell us about that change of what you're advocating in terms of difference in policy.
Okay, so I think it's very important for the cheshbon nefesh that we do, nations cheshbon nefesh, and the way we set our mindsets to very different issues. This is one of them, V'shavu banim legvulam, about bringing soldiers who are left behind in the most, I think, one of the sacred places that we have in our hearts, which are the soldiers of the IDF. This is one of the most solid, unifying, I don't know if to call it a value or piece of our heart. For just over 30 or 40 years, Israel has been struggling with kidnapping terrorism. It's a type of terrorism that is aimed to break our spirit as a nation. Terrorist organizations, not only in Israel, it's a global issue, seek to kidnap soldiers and civilians in order for that to be a burden for us, an asset for them, in order to gain political targets, and in order to break our spirits, because they put us into a position when we need to choose from two felonies. One is paying ransom with releasing thousands of terrorists, and the last example was I don't think it's just to say the Gilad Shalit, but that's how we remember, because Gilad Shalit, he was a soldier, and his family, he needed to come back home, and he's building a beautiful family in Israel. He doesn't need to, he or his family need to pay a price for different decisions that the government or leader has taken. But over 1,000 terrorists has been released, and this is just an example of one felony where you release terrorists and endanger your own nation. The other family felony is leaving him, leaving soldiers behind, breaking the most basic character. Sorry about my English, but the most basic
the morale
sentiment
of
that we have for the morale
of the army is to know that they'll be coming home. Yeah.
To know that they'll be coming home. And so for 30 or 40 years, we have been struggling with that. It's sometimes it had become a political issue, and now we were unfortunate to hold the present shift Mishmeret, where I live in Jerusalem. I'm speaking from Rehov Aza, from Rechavia. A lot of people have lived there and family live there. כמו שאומרים, משמרת שומר על החומות. So this is the feeling where now we were in a very, very important twist and change of tide, where Israel has understood that this is a war that we are not winning, and so we are advocating to bring my brother home, because we reached a situation where the mindset is that leaving a soldier behind may be possible, especially if it's a fallen soldier, or the chances and the risks are high, and we got to a position where Hadar, my beloved brother, is held by these barbaric terrorists, and he is held there in a place where we know where he is. He's an hour's drive from Tel Aviv. We know what the terrorists, what are their weaknesses. We know how this could be a solution, and how can we flip the equation. We can bring to a point where when a terrorist organization kidnaps a soldier or an Israeli civilian, that it's not an asset for them, but it can be a burden. And so we need to flip the equation, make them pay prices and not us. And this is a perfect situation where peace can achieve peace and humanity can achieve humanity, because the Gaza Strip, Hamas is a terrorist entity of 30,000 terrorists. That's it. We call it the regional bully. We hold 2 million Palestinian civilians as hostages for a lot of cynical reasons. And this is a way where, in this situation, especially when we're talking about COVID-19 and the crisis that is global, where Israel could reach for another solution where civilians win and not terrorists win. And so we go all around the world. We are dedicated to this mission. We will never stop until we bring my brother home, and in a way that secures the future of Israeli soldiers, of Israeli families, who will know that the Jewish nation and all the Jewish communities around the world won't rest until soldiers are bringing back behind. And we know that when you deal with when you even talk about a situation about leaving a soldier behind consciously, then you know that it doesn't really matter if it's a fallen soldier or wounded, because we know now, when we're dealing with the coronavirus, with the COVID, that when you disrespect the fallen, and then you disrespect the wounded, you will disrespect the wounded, and then you will end up disrespecting life itself. But with your permission, Rabbi, I will talk about the special context of Tisha B'Av. So Hadar was, we were commemorating this week, his fact that he was kidnapped and fallen in a very special event. But the date of his azkara, his commemoration, is Hey B'Av, and it's always in the middle of Tishat Hayamim, and the context is very strong, because especially towards what he stood up for, which is Achdut Ve'La'ached Am Israel, and what we believe is the very strong and but not, and at the same level, the importance of the fact that our values, our shared faith, shared values will be as strong, as solid as possible. The sense of shared faith and the sense of bringing a soldier back home. And and of course, Tzur Goldin was in the middle of Tisha B'Av, and the day of what we called Shiva, where we could commemorate any sense of commemorating the fact that he passed away. was during those days. And also we are commemorating these days 15 years for the Pinui of Gush Katif, the region that it was right in the middle of Gaza, where over 500,000 civilians were evacuated or moved. I don't want to use any, I want to be politically correct, but it was a very, I think most of us were here, it was a very disappointing, a very big sense of Khurban. Doesn't matter if it was with love, doesn't matter if it was, but it was a very huge sense of Khurban, and Hadar chose to marry, to be engaged with Edna Sarusi. He was meant to marry her 3 weeks after he has fallen, and Edna was evacuated from when there was settlements in Mitzrayim, in Sinai, but her family, and then they were evacuated to Gush Katif. And then after that, they were evacuated from them. And I was 15, 16 years old when that happened 15 years ago. 14, I'm sorry for exaggerating. 14 years. And during that time, I remember growing up and asking, what happened to my nation? What happened to my beloved values? And the title, or what led us, is the fact that this Khurban has all to do with the nituk. It was called the itnatkut, the disengagement. But the lesson that we took is that the disengagement wasn't a disengagement physical one, but it was a disengagement between the religious or tzionut dati, the parts that were in 500,000 civilians, all the families, the nituk, the itnatkut that were between different parts of Israel. One of them was secular, the others were religious. One part of them had a very, very strong sense of Zionism, they were sure of the way, and the others thought about other things. And the huge lesson that we learned is to unify and to find a way to build bridges and then to be as one. And I think we made a very long way now. I know a lot of you watch the media, watch the news. I'm also very scared of what happens to our sense of ahavat china, our sense of unity. Doesn't matter how well politicians do. Politicians are here and they're here at the moment, and after they will go, someone else will swap and change and be in their positions. But I think that in these days where we see a lot of protests, which are just for this is our hearts being spoken, a lot of protests and a lot of people with one deot shonot. One of them is more left, one of them is more right, one of them thinks about that and the other. And there's also a sense of khurban. And we are all alarmed about how do we keep this sacred shared faith and the way that we are together. And I can tell you that this is, for me, it's all coming together. The fact that Hadar was fallen in Rafiach, and it was only about less than a kilometer where the yeshuv that I once was 15 years old, Ganei Tal, and Hadar was fiance was evacuated, and the very place where there are terrorists, and you see the depravity of Hamas, the depravity between people who mekadshim et hamavet, who what's as sacred as death. We have life, and the sense of unity and the lesson that we learn from them. And I can tell you, and in order to cheer you up, that when you look beyond what is in the media and all the sinah, I can see the future. And we see a lot of a young generation. And when I'm saying young generation, I'm speaking people between 20 to the early 40s, people who are tired of hate and who look at the future. And what you do, your community, the way I was in your community not too long ago, a few months ago, with my friends from my tzevet. We went through very, very hard times in Tzur Goldin, lost a lot of friends, and we came for a therapy in your community, and we are grateful. And I can tell you, this is only one example, but the way you support in many different ways the future of Israel and the future of our values. And I don't think you do it as in tmimut, or you see through everything. You know the reality is not always. I think this is Tisha B'Av. We are not ignorant about our reality. We're not ignorant about how things are. And this is what I say a lot of times. People ask me, if the situation is so terrible, how can you persist? What is holding you all the time? So what is holding me is that the Jewish nation, we are holding about what is ideal, not what is current. And when we look around and we see faces that together, when you persist and you go on for a long journey, our values will be saved, and our path is sure to be good, and we will find a way to not only to cure our wounds, but also to set an example for the entire world.
Absolutely. Tzur, you speak so beautifully, and your English is wonderful, and you're a great spokesperson for all that we believe. And for your brother, we're not hanging up. Don't worry. Don't look at your watch yet. We got a couple more questions to go. But I want to follow. I want to follow. I know it's late in Israel, but at least you've eaten already. I want to follow up on.
I've eaten already. I had a cake and coffee, tea.
Perfect.
Ashkenazim, we're all Ashkenazi here, and I mean, my family, we drink a bit of tea and then cake, and then after that.
That's it. You're good to go.
After the tea.
After you're good to go. So you mentioned turning the policy on its head, where when terrorists capture a soldier, alive or dead, they're not in the advantage, they're in the disadvantage, because now they know they have to fear. And that's a wonderful vision. And that can be accomplished by going in, by the Israeli army going in to do what they need to bring someone home. It can be accomplished by turning off the power to Gaza and say, you're violating international law, you have to deliver the body, and until you do, we're cutting off the power, which many would object to as a communal punishment and something which is immoral and unjust. My question to you is, would you fear the international community if one did that? Would they say Israel's the aggressor and Israel's practicing communal punishment and Israel is too aggressive and disproportionate and so on, all the things that we've heard before? Can the international community be recruited to be part of the solution, not the problem? If this is in fact an international law, why do they allow terrorists? Shouldn't they be holding these terrorists accountable? Why aren't there condemnations at the UN? Where's the American government? I know that you and your family have had many meetings with elected leaders in America, and I know you have some allies, and we'd love to hear about them. But why isn't the international community doing more to say this is against international law, this is unethical, this is unjust, it's wrong, it's simply wrong, and you cannot barter, you can't trade, we won't allow to negotiate with terrorists. We've seen what's happened in the past when terrorists are released. It's simply not right. What can we do to raise our voice and to join yours? You were in our shul every Shabbat. When the shul is open and operational, we daven Hadar ben Simcha, we say his name, we daven for Ne'edarei Tzahal, and we, of course, daven for Hadar as well. But davening is one thing, we appeal to Hashem, and we have to, our tradition has always taught, we have to combine the prayer with taking action. So where's the international community? Who are the allies in the American government? What are they doing? And for our listeners, who can help? What can we be doing? What more can we do in order to get this front and center? It should be the cover of the newspaper every day. It should be black and white. Every person of a moral conscience should be outspoken and say, Hadar Goldin's body needs to be brought back home.
Okay, thank you for this question, because the international community, not only that it's not a barrier, it's the key for resolving the situation. And that our main activity is most importantly in the US, the White House, the UN, American administration, and also a lot of other organizations. We also work on Qatar a lot, and then the Egyptians, the Turks. We work all around the world because we understand this is the key. First of all, not only that it's a barrier, it's not a barrier. The fact that we hold terrorist organizations accountable, specifically in regard to Gaza, because Gaza is, as I said, there's the original bully that holds 2 million civilians hostage. We have all the right, the international community has all the rights to combat this kind of terrorism. And this is not only, and we are not aiming in order to make a terrorist organization to pay the price, you don't need to bring to a collective punishment. It's not something to do with, we never conditioned medicine, food, sewage, or anything like that, that are humanitarian for the civilians in Gaza. In contrary, we found a lot of solutions using the international community that should, for all we concern, transform Gaza into Singapore. Our offer is business, and our offer is politics and diplomacy. And what we are doing, I think, rather successfully, but we're not there yet, is unifying the entities, the important entities, the international community, American administration, UN, EU, ICP. We do a lot of ICC. Sorry, we do a lot of work all around the world with all the politicians concerned and the opinions, all different opinions of Israel, in order to bring to a point. We have the deal of the century that we're talking about. We have all sorts of opportunities all the time, considering the rehabilitation of Gaza, rebuilding Gaza, bring a solution. And when both sides are climbing up a tree about all the peace process or the lack of peace process, a key to take everyone down, climb down the high tree that they climbed on, is actually pursuing this stuff. And we do it with great success, but we need also to support. This is a long journey and a very hard one, and we need all the power that we can get in order to convince those politicians to pursue this way. And specifically, there was decision 2474, the Security Council of the UN, that we always complain that they're against Israel, against the Jewish nation, everyone. They decided, with a very strong effort that we did with Professor Erwin Kotler, a person with great zchuyot. He brought Natan Sharansky out of jail and Nelson Mandela. Now he's working in Venezuela. He's the human rights expert, and he's also an Israeli. And we reached to a decision, UN Security Council decision that says no permanent agreement in Gaza would be reached before prisoners will be brought back home, specifically the boys. And the UN is now there, a lot thanks to the support of your community. This has to be said. You should know, and I know this is a long journey. We're talking about shaping our future. The way to bring my brother is not only to bring him home specifically, but there's a saying in Israeli slang, derech aruka ktsara. If we choose the long way, the hardest one, then the fruits will be brought immediately, and you understand the point. But this is the first thing. And why does the American administration understand it very well? It was also the Obama administration. Now it's the Trump administration, because the international community understands two things. The one is combating terrorism. It's all around us. Israel was always a pioneer at combating bombing attacks in buses and attacking all over, and setting an example for the whole wide world. So we find support in this target, and they understand it very well. And the plans are written. The plans are written in Israel. The plans are written in everywhere we go. They're set. You got to know my mother and my father and all the effort of over 100 people that go all around the world to pursue this. So this is not only said as artilai, as something mufshat, something that is not solid on the ground. The plans are there, and the will is there. The only will that should be sorted is the Israeli will. We are in dark times, where we understand, when there's a lot of fear to do anything in Israel. We always calculate risks and not calculate opportunities. We don't we don't look beyond and fight for what we love, and we demolish everything we love and respect with both hands because we don't fight it. And if we don't do it ourselves and convince all the people to act, this could be the second thing. Just I didn't finish the second thing about that the international community understands the humanitarian issue, and everybody understands, according to all religions, all sets of values and doctrines that moral doctrines, that bringing a soldier back home, bringing the fallen soldiers back home is of the highest importance to every set, and also to Muslims, and especially the Palestinians. And we got into contact with a lot of Palestinian families, and you would be surprised how they find this an opportunity to get rid of the dictatorship that holds them hostage. Of course, they don't adhere to a lot of things that we stand for, and we have a lot of conflict with a lot of things. But in this thing, the agreement is from end to end. And I believe, and I would say Yehi Ratzon also, that with great effort, because now is the money time where we can really push and reach a situation where we're flipping the equation. And perhaps the quest to bring Hadar home and in his memory would be a quest that saves lives in the future, and bring us into a path where our dignity, our human dignity is back, our values come back, and it will help us shape the future that we want for our children and we want for the next generations of Israelim be'artzam, be'umatam, and the way they, and their passage, the mesarim shelaim la'olam, the way they communicate to the world.
So tell us, first of all, thank you for your time. It's getting late in Israel, and you speak so passionately and beautifully, and we're so grateful to you. Leave us with what your charge is to us. What more can we be doing? Who should we be talking to? What should we be saying? How do we scream from the rooftop? How do we do what we need to? In addition to including your brother's name in our tefillot, which we continue to do, what more can, Baruch Hashem, there's many listening and watching, tell us what to be doing? Because, transforming Gaza is a beautiful long-term plan, and maybe short-term plan, but it takes a long term. He should be brought home even before it's reformed, even before we get rid of terrorist leaders, even before the Palestinians are set free in Gaza. That is a noble effort, and it will, as you said, yield fruit, not just to bring Hadar's body home, but it can really advance what we care about in the world. But what can happen more quickly, more immediately? Should people call their elected officials and put it on their radar, put it on their map, make them demand that Hamas release his body? Give us, in closing, give us a charge of what you're asking everybody to do.
So the first thing that should be said, never give up. This is a long way, long road. I know that many of the people who are listening took part in the efforts to bring my brother home. Never give up, persist, and seek the ways in the past. So there are the usual things that can be done. The first thing is people who are with connections and can seek to affect all the politicians, and every simple people can do that everywhere in power. If it's administration, if it's local, if it's people with power, if it's politicians, people with power of money, or people with a lot of powers to affect the region. I told you a lot of stuff. There's the UN, there's American administration, there's the countries like Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, a lot of, and Europe, in America, in Israel. There's a lot of ways. The most simple thing is to ask any government official, even in Israel, or Chak, and I know they come. I live among you, know they come and they want money and they want a lot of stuff and they want support and they want power. Ask one question. Where are our boys? Why aren't they brought back home? Why are you scared? We know it is through reality. This is one. Seek your representatives, your officials, talk to them, persuade them. Don't accept no for an answer. Even if they disappoint you, carry on. We all in a great go from strength to strength. And the second thing is also, if there are any people from youth movements or people who are younger, you are our key. You are our army for everything. Go to the media, go follow our pages. The one is Bring Hadar Home. The second one is Hadar Sheli. In English, it's Hadar Hadar Sheli. Everyone says to people that are the closest people for him, your daughters, your sons, your brothers, your mothers, Sheli. They are not mine, but I feel like it's mine. So that's the name of our page, Hadar Sheli. You can follow, you can share, and there's a lot to be done. And specifically in this situation and in this opportunity and piece of time that we are, rare times that we are dealing with. People see it as hard times, and we see this as an opportunity, a real opportunity for change. And this is what happens in the international community. The third thing is now in August, we will start a very, very unifying and strong and positive campaign in Israel. It will be in the whole wide world, and it will involve all the, remember this, it will involve, I can't talk about it a lot. It will involve communities around the world who will give a strong message to the leaders in Israel and to the leaders in the US specifically, that now is the time. We are not happy with the way things are handled. We want our soldiers home, and we want bring us back the value of unity, bring us back the value of shared faith. And I believe, I hope, and Bezrat Hashem, that we will talk afterwards, Rabbi Goldberg, in happier moments, that we could look at this time, this month of August. I hope this is recorded as the time where the effort, the shared effort that we have done in the near month will be the one that brought us the fruits. And the fruits are bringing our soldiers home, bringing our strength back and our sense of pride of our nation and the sense of pride for our soldiers back, saving lives in the future. And by no means, it won't be a way to bring any punishment, the collective punishments to people who are innocent. This is not the way, and this is not the case. The case is putting terrorists lose, civilians win, and our soldiers will never be abandoned and left behind in the way that my dear brother Hadar was left behind in the six past years. Because have no doubt, my brother was left behind because we were tired and because of fear. A conscious decision by our leadership, thought this is the solution. This is the way to change our fate. And now people understand that this is not the case. We have sacrificed. There's a mashal, there's a fable, not a fable, but a word that we used when you want to save the baby and he's in the bathtub, so you throw the water with the baby, okay? To say that you wanted to solve a minor problem, and by solving it, you destroyed the biggest thing that is dear to you and the true aim that you are at. Unfortunately, for 6 years consciously, the decision was to leave them back behind. There were endless opportunities to bring my brother home. It's in the easiest ways and in the way of victory. But now we're talking about Toda'ah, and we're talking about how we are sure of the truth of our actions, and true to our sure and believe in our existence in Israel, and we truly believed in our soldiers and the way that we can bring to a victory upon terrorism and not lose it. Because now I come back to the how I began this conversation. If terrorists make us choose between two felonies, one is to pay prices in terrorism, and the second is to abandon our soldiers, our civilians, our beloved ones, then we seek victory, and we will find it. We will choose life, and life will persist, and life and the life of our beloved Israel and our beloved nation, communities, congregation will win terrorism.
Absolutely.
And אני מתפלל, and I'm working as Rabbi Goldin said, prayers are enough, now there are actions, and I act and go after my brother. I did it in Operation Protective Edge. I was in the rescue effort to bring him home. I didn't know it. I was told to go out, and that was where my physical mission, I was a lochem, a combat soldier, officer in Operation Protective Edge. I was there to bring my brother home out of the tunnel. I didn't accomplish that. I'm doing it for the past 6 years, and אני מתפלל ושאת תפילה in this day that our achdut will bring my brother home. I hope immediately, but up until next Tisha B'Av and Binyan Bet HaMikdash.
So you are a tribute to your parents, you're a tribute to your brother, you're a tribute to our people. I want to thank you for your time. And we're going to go from Tisha B'Av to Shabbat Nachamu. And we wish Nechama to you and to your family. And the great Nechama, they can't bring Hadar back to life, but they can bring Hadar back to home. And to be able to allow you to have the closure, to be able to mourn him properly, and to be able to move on. So we are with you. We'll continue to daven. We'll continue to work. We'll continue to make those phone calls. Thank you for giving us this time, and thank you for serving our people in the IDF, and thank you for continuing to serve until today. And we look forward to seeing you, please God, soon. Up, you're on Rehov Aza, so up the hill and then down in the Beit HaMikdash. We'll meet there for a great barbecue together with you and with Hadar and with all of Am Yisrael. Thank you so much for your time.
תודה רבה. בשורות טובות, and צום מועיל ונעים.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Take care.